you wonder if Coldplay's been sitting around listening to Joe Satriani or not. We'll get to that in a second. Chris, you deal with the legal end of the music industry. How often does this kind of allegation come up?
It comes up a lot, and a lot more than people hear. This is a public example, and even it very rarely goes to the judgment sort of stage that the George Harrison case would have. But we have numerous files like this that come through the office that people never hear about. A lot of these are settled, and I imagine this one there was probably a lot of negotiation and threatening lawyers' letters that were going back and forth for months before this ever became public.
How are they usually settled?
A number of ways. I mean, sometimes the person that's making the threat just kind of goes away when push comes to shove and the rubber hits the road and it's time to really pay a lawyer to launch a lawsuit and file the claim and everything else. They get cold feet. I mean, that's one way that happens. I mean, we're happy with that if someone's threatening one of our clients. Two, there may be some sort of a settlement where there's a one-time financial payment. That could be $100. It could be $200,000, depending on who's involved. The other is to end up settling on some sort of interest in the copyright itself, saying, look, okay, you know what, maybe we did this consciously or unconsciously. Either way, you get 10% of the song for life.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So you actually give them a piece of it.
This famously happened with Chuck Berry and the Beach Boys. The version of the song California Girls that was originally recorded in 1963 by the Beach Boys, after several years, Chuck Berry noticed a strong resemblance to his song Sweet Little 16, All the Cats Want to Dance with Sweet Little 16. And there was a case and a settlement, and if you buy a copy of the record or recording pressed after 1980, you see Chuck Berry is listed as a co-writer.
Chris, does Joe Satriani have a case?
I think he does. It's always hard to say where it's going to end up, and that's probably why a lot of these cases settle before they get in front of a judge. But I think Coldplay needs to take that very seriously. Listen, I mean, this is how these cases kind of break down. It's sort of like a medical malpractice suit where people hire their own experts. You'll get one musicologist that says they're remarkably similar. The other guy will get a musicologist that says they don't sound the same at all.
All right. Well, we have a musicologist in Montreal. Daniel, what do you think?
I think they sound remarkably similar, and the fact that the tempo is the same, and Joe Satriani is playing a lot of embellishments of the melody. And he may consider those an integral part of his composition, but Coldplay has gone for the main notes and the main sort of narrative thrust of the melody, and
again, the melody is a pretty accessible melody. Da 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 da. So that part's not the part that gets me really particularly interested, but the tempo, the actual groove around it. Is it possible that this was entirely a coincidence, Daniel?
Oh, it's certainly possible. I mean, you're a songwriter too, Gian. I mean, there are only 12 notes. You can put them together in certain ways, and it could be a coincidence. More likely, as a songwriter, I think what happens is you wake up in the morning and you have a melody rattling around in your head, right, and you try to figure out if you'd heard it before or where you heard it. And failing that, you develop it. You add lyrics, you add a bridge and a chorus, and you've got a song. And maybe later you find out. I mean, to me, they sound remarkably similar, and I would testify to that in court.
Chris, is coincidence provable?
It's getting easier to prove, I think. What's really been interesting is the development of music online. I mean, we're seeing more and more of these cases because access was always a more difficult thing to prove for a completely unknown group. Now with music online everywhere, all day, all the time, it's a little bit easier, I think, to prove the access, the aspect of these cases.
I guess the one question is, Daniel, if Satriani might have a case against Gunther, why do you think he went after Coldplay?
Well, obviously he may not know about the Gunther one, or he may figure that Coldplay's got deeper pockets. Maybe he went after Gunther and settled. We don't know.
That's true. Chris, Chris, do you have a sense of why Joe would go after Coldplay but not these other acts?
Yeah, I think that's exactly the reason. And the deeper pockets is a huge factor in this. I don't have any poor clients that get sued for copyright infringement. The ones that have deeper pockets are the targets.